Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Queen. In today's tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to cut and sew a perfect shoulder dart bustier. Okay, I'm going to title this method 1 and in my next I'm going to teach you method 2. Okay, basically I've gone ahead to rule on my material. I'm using an Ankara material. Okay, so the line I rule is 17, so the length is 17, so I just rule across where my measurement is going to be starting from. The back measurement I'm working with is 8, so I'm going to go ahead to mark on 8, and from that point I'll go down to draft my armhole. Okay, so my armhole length is a 9. Okay, so I'm checking on 9, and then I'm going to go ahead to connect the lines together. Okay, so at the same time that line is going to be serving as my chest line. Okay guys, so the next thing for me to do is to connect the 8 I've chalked up. I'm going to connect it down, so and that is where I'm going to be taking my armhole from. So I'm going to be using my French curve to do that. Okay, for my shoulder dart intake, I'm going to be taking 1 inch, so I mark 1 inch from that point, and the next thing is for me to mark my neckline. So I chalked on 3.5 and the length I'm using is about 4 inches, so the width is 3.5, and then I'll go ahead to connect the lines together and do so for my shoulder slope. Okay, once I'm done doing that, the next thing for me to do is to go ahead to take in my measurements. Okay, but don't forget that after taking my shoulder slope, I have 8 on the shoulder now instead of 9 in total, and 8 is just fine. Okay, now so for my bust point, the bust point I'll be working with is 10 inches, so I'll go ahead to connect the lines together. The next thing I'm going to get is my under bust length. So for this bust point, I'll go ahead to label it bust point, so I use the abbreviation BP for that. So for my under bust, the length of my under bust from the shoulder is 14 inches, so I'll go ahead to make a dot 14 inches, then connect the lines together as well. Okay, so let me label it under bust line. Okay guys, the length of the waist, that is my waist length, is 16, and I have 1 inches for my seam, so it's just enough for me. I'll go ahead to rule on the waistline 16 as well. Okay, so I've gone ahead to label it waistline. The next thing for me to do is to mark out the bust span. So the bust span I'm working with is 7.5, so I'll go ahead to mark about 4.2 so I can have space to sew. So that's little that I had, little inches, is gonna serve as my seam. So I'm going to go ahead to rule through it from my chest line down to the waist, so I'm going to go ahead to rule through it. I'm going to continue my measurement up to my shoulder as well, and then go ahead to rule the lines as well. So it's just a straight connected lines, and it's around 4.2 all through. Okay, so after that, the next thing for me to do is to take in my dart. So I'm starting the measurement from the bust point, so I'm just marking that point so it can be clear. Okay, that's my bust point, and then from my under bust, I'm going to go in by that side by 2 inches. So I marked 2 inches there, and on this other side I marked 0.7. Okay, I'm going to continue the line down, but then before that I'll go ahead to connect the lines. So from my bust point, what I did was just to drew a curve kind of line down to the 2 inches. Okay, you can achieve this with a French curve. So let me place my French curve on it so you can see. Either you use your free hand or you use your French curve, you will still achieve the same thing. Okay, so I'm just ruling to be double sure. All right, so on this other part, I'll go ahead to connect straightly like so. On the shoulder, I'm going to go ahead to mark 0.7 on this part, 0.7 inches, and on this other part I'll go ahead to mark 1 inches. So I'll go ahead to connect the lines to my bust point as well, like I'm doing. So I'm using my French curve to extend the lines. Okay, so like so. And now on the other down part, I'll go ahead to just continue my lines that is coming from the under bust straight down. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other part too. So I took in 2 inches, don't forget. So I'm just marking the 2 inches and then I'll use my ruler to connect it. So now I'll go ahead to measure the intake on the shoulder part. So 0.7 plus 1 inches is about 2 inches. So I'm actually returning the 2 inches to the other side. Don't forget, I've already chalk out my armhole, so I'm just extending it. So anything I've taken out, I'm going to be replacing it on the other side, and I then went ahead to extend my shoulder slope. So that's what I did there. And on this part, I'll go ahead to start my measurement. So for my bust is 40. That's the bust I'm working on, which is 10. So I added 1.5 inches to it. So I'm marking on the main measurement first and then 1.5. So I took the measurement from my chest line and my bust. So it's going to give me the same thing, which is 10 and plus 1.5, that is 11.5. So around my under bust, what I did was to measure to the first curve. So I have about 3.5 and I just shift my tape and I continue my measurement from that place like so. So my under bust is divided into 4 is 8, which is 32 divided by 4. Then I added my 1.5 as well and I connected the lines together. So for the waist, I'm actually making a peplum. I've actually posted a video about the peplum I'm making for this dress, so I'm going to be placing the link below so you can see. So for the waist is 36, and then I divided it into 4, which is 9, and I added my allowance to it as well, and I'm going to be connecting the lines together. So the next thing for me to do is to go ahead and cut it out. So I've actually cut out all the intakes. I'm cutting it out. We are not using it. So, and this is what is remaining. So I'm trying to cut the rest out, and then I decided to add more allowance to the dress so I can have enough place to work with, and at the end of the day when I'm done, I'll do the trimming. Okay guys, so I'm still on cutting, and then after I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead to cut my wording. Okay, for this dress I'm using a soft wording actually, and then I'm going to be cutting it into sizes and place it on my fabric. So to cut it, I went ahead to measure 6 inches for the length and about 4.5 for the width. So I'm going to go ahead to measure the fabric again so you can see, and then place the measurement on my wording. So what I'm doing now is to get my middle point out of 6, which is 3.5. so the middle point is what I'm trying to get there, and on that middle point is where I'm placing my measurement. That's the 4.5. Okay, and on this other side, that the upper part, I went ahead to measure around 3.5 because that's what I have on my fabric. Then I'm going to connect the lines and then cuts. So I'm using my French curve as well. It's giving me the same outcome. Okay guys, so I'll go ahead to cut this out now and then place it on my fabric. So it has a gum part, so it's the gum part that is going to be facing the wrong side of the fabric. So I'm trying to notch the bust point here, so when I'm sewing it's going to be easy for me. And on the other bust I'm notching it, and I'm going to be doing it on the other side of the fabric as well. So the wrong side is where my wording is going to be staying. So I'm going to use iron to iron this, but before that I'm going to use my office pin to secure it to the fabric first, and then use an hot iron to iron it, let it stay to the fabric, and then trim out the excess on the wording if there is. Okay, so this is my office pin working on the fabric to secure it before I go ahead to iron it. So for the other part, I cut the same thing and I split it into two, and I'm going to face it to the wrong side of the fabric as well. So like this, I'm going to use my office pin to secure these two and then trim out any excess. Okay, so on the inside I try to chalk the sides like this. I just use my chalk to give it a curve shape instead of the straight shape that is having. So I just curve it, so it's just, you can leave it like that, but I decided to give it this beautiful shape anyway. And then this is me trying to join the fabric together. So to do this, I've already sewn one side and this is the other side. Okay, so this is me trying to place it right, the notch edge facing each other, and then I go ahead to sew like so. So I'm sewing on a seam of about less than half inches. So I'm just sewing straight like so. And on this curve end, I'm trying to curve it as well, and then bending it towards the machine so I can have a perfect shape of what I've cut being sewed. And on this part, I just go ahead to raise my machine foot and then sew it as well straight down. Okay, I am done, and I'm trying to bring out all the edges, all the curved edges, so I can have a neat dress. I'm going to go ahead to iron this out, all the edges as it is. I'm going to iron it out and show you the outcome. Okay, so this is what it looks like. It's so neat, and you can see the distance are all equal, and then it's looking good, and it's going to sit perfectly on the bust like so. Okay, now the next thing is for me to go ahead to cut out my neckline. So any neckline I desire, I'm going to be able to achieve it now. And the shoulder, which is 8, when I measured it, it still maintained my 8. In fact, I have about 8.5, so it's more than enough for me to do whatever I want to do with now. So now I'm going to go ahead to mark the width of my neckline, which is 3.5, and then the length to whatever shape, whatever form that you want it. Okay, we have come to the end of this video. I hope you love it. I hope you enjoy it, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you, and see you in my next